deeper now than man has ever been before.
Imagine diving into one of the most ambitious underwater epics ever attempted. But your mechanical monster looks like a bath toy. Your leading man can't swim and your set literally smells like death. That's the story of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. A production so cursed with disasters that it's a miracle anyone survived, let alone finished the film. From rogue squid tentacles to shark-infested chutes to a water tank filled with rotting milk, this wasn't just a movie production. It was an underwater war zone. But before we plunge into the depths of this production nightmare, smash that subscribe button and hit the hype button so you never miss these insane behind-the-scenes stories. And if you're loving this already, drop a like right now. Trust me, what you're about to hear will make you wonder how this movie ever made it to theaters. Alright, let's dive in. Here are 15 weird, shocking, and downright unbelievable facts about the making of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Number 1. The giant squid nearly sank the entire movie. Imagine spending months building the film's centerpiece, a massive mechanical squid, only to watch your first screening and realize it looks like a child's bath toy. That's exactly what happened. The original squid battle was shot at sunset on a calm, glassy sea set. The lighting was beautiful, the water was serene, and the squid, a rubber disaster. Walt Disney himself watched the footage and reportedly called it a rubber nightmare. The whole thing screamed fake, so what did they do? Tore down the entire set and started over. The reshoot took place in the middle of a simulated hurricane. Rain machines blasted water, lightning effects crackled overhead, and wind machines generated gusts hitting 100 mph. The chaos masked the mechanical flaws perfectly. Sometimes you don't fix the monster, you just throw a bigger storm at it. Number 2. The squid had a mind of its own. That terrifying tentacled beast wasn't operated by one person. It was a mechanical nightmare requiring an entire team. Each tentacle was wired to its own hydraulic and cable system, with crew members stationed off-camera controlling individual movements like puppeteers from hell. When everything worked, it looked incredible. When it didn't? During one take, an electrical short circuit sent the tentacles into a violent frenzy. They whipped around the set completely out of control, smashing equipment, knocking over lights, and nearly crushing Kirk Douglas in the process. Crew members scattered. Someone screamed to kill the power. By the time they shut it down, thousands of dollars in gear was destroyed. The mechanical monster didn't just terrorize the Nautilus crew, it terrorized the actual crew. Number 3. Kirk Douglas got beat up by a rubber squid. Action scenes are tough, but usually your opponent isn't trying to actually drown you. Kirk Douglas learned that lesson the hard way. During the squid battle, malfunctioning tentacles grabbed him and dragged him underwater multiple times for real. These weren't gentle dips. The hydraulics yanked him down hard, and he had to fight his way back to the surface, gasping for air. Years later, Douglas admitted it was the most physically brutal scene he'd ever filmed. The irony? His toughest fight wasn't against another actor or stuntman, it was against a broken puppet that kept trying to kill him. He walked away bruised, exhausted, and with a newfound respect for practical effects, or maybe just a deep hatred of mechanical sea creatures. Number 4. The ocean was actually made of milk. Ever wonder how filmmakers created those murky, mysterious underwater depths in 1954? The answer is both brilliant and disgusting. To simulate the cloudy darkness of the deep ocean, technicians dumped hundreds of gallons of powdered milk into the massive water tank. It worked perfectly for the camera, gave everything that authentic underwater haze. But here's the problem. Milk plus hot stage lights equals biological warfare. The smell became unbearable. Actors complained they could barely breathe. Crew members gagged between takes. Imagine standing in a giant vat of spoiling dairy products while wearing heavy costumes under blazing studio lamps. That's not filmmaking, that's torture with a camera crew watching. Number 5. Kirk Douglas almost drowned mid-song. You know that famous scene where Kirk Douglas belts out his sea shanty while standing on the ship's deck? Looks effortless, right? Behind the scenes, it was nearly a disaster. Douglas was performing on a moving set piece designed to simulate a rocking ship. Mid-song, the platform slipped off its track and lurched violently to one side. Douglas stumbled, barely catching himself before plunging into the water tank below, still singing. The crew froze, cameras kept rolling. Somehow he finished the take without missing a beat, but he later said his heart was pounding so hard he thought it would burst through his chest. Nothing says Hollywood magic like almost drowning while performing a cheerful musical number. Number 6. Captain Nemo faked his musical talent. James Mason looks absolutely mesmerizing playing that massive pipe organ in Nemo's cabin. His fingers glide across the keys with the confidence of a concert virtuoso. There's just one problem. He wasn't actually playing. A Disney staff musician was hidden behind the set, performing live through speakers while Mason mimed along. Mason admitted he had no clue how to play an organ, and spent hours rehearsing hand movements that looked convincing on camera. The real musician couldn't even see the screen. He played blind while watching Mason's cues through a tiny monitor. It's one of cinema's great illusions, a legendary performance that was really just elaborate theatrical lip-syncing for piano. Number 7. That organ lives at Disneyland now. Here's a fun twist. Nemo's iconic organ didn't end up in a museum or private collection. Disney moved it to Disneyland's Haunted Mansion attraction, where it still plays eerie tunes for park guests today. Imagine being a kid riding past that organ, having no idea you're looking at a genuine piece of cinematic history from one of the greatest adventure films ever made. It went from the mysterious depths of the Nautilus to entertaining families at a theme park. From Jules Verne's imagination to Main Street, USA. Not a bad retirement for a movie prop. Number 8. Real dead sea creatures became biological hazards. For maximum authenticity, the prop department used actual dead fish and squid during certain shots. Fresh from the market, they looked great on camera, realistic, textured, properly disgusting. But here's what nobody planned for. Those organic props sitting under scorching studio lights for days. The smell evolved from unpleasant to biohazard-level horror. Rotting seafood in a closed soundstage under 130-degree heat lamps created an olfactory nightmare. Crew members started wearing masks just to get through their shifts. Some refused to work certain scenes until the dead fish were removed. The quest for realism turned the set into what one crew member described as a floating seafood dumpster fire. Authenticity came at a very smelly price. Number 9. Sharks crashed the underwater chute. Filming underwater sequences off the Bahamas coast seemed like a brilliant idea. Crystal clear water, beautiful natural lighting, authentic ocean environment. Then the locals showed up. Real sharks, curious about all the activity, started circling the film crew during takes. Not little reef sharks, big ones. Divers had to carry poles to fend them off between shots, jabbing at any predator that got too close. Imagine trying to focus on your performance while a production assistant frantically waves a stick at a shark eyeing you like lunch. The underwater scenes look serene and magical on screen. The reality was closer to controlled panic with cameras rolling. Number 10. They invented underwater filmmaking on the fly. In 1954, underwater cinematography barely existed as a concept. Professional waterproof camera housings didn't exist. The crew literally had to invent the technology as they went. They built custom enclosures using rubber gaskets, grease-sealed boxes, and pure trial-and-error engineering. Half the time, they weren't sure if the equipment would survive the next dive. Cameramen descended into the ocean with gear held together by hope and waterproof tape, praying nothing would flood and destroy thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Every successful underwater shot was a minor miracle. This wasn't just filmmaking, it was pioneering an entirely new branch of cinema from scratch. Number 11. Peter Lorre's terror was 100% real. Peter Lorre's fearful expressions during diving scenes look incredibly genuine. That's because they were. Lorre couldn't swim and was absolutely terrified of being underwater. Every time he had to descend into the tank, legitimate panic showed on his face. The director loved it, called it brilliant method acting. Lorre later admitted he wasn't acting at all. He was genuinely convinced he was going to drown. His wide-eyed fear, his desperate movements, the way he clutched at safety equipment between takes, pure survival instinct, zero performance. Sometimes the best acting isn't acting at all. It's just raw, unfiltered terror captured on film. Lorre had actually nearly drowned as a child, making his phobia deeply rooted and impossible to overcome. The crew tried everything to calm him down. Extra safety divers, shorter takes, even offering to use a stunt double for wider shots. But Lorre, professional to the core, refused to let his fear derail production. He'd stand at the edge of the tank visibly shaking, take a few deep breaths and force himself in. Between takes, he'd emerge gasping and trembling, sometimes needing several minutes to compose himself before going back under. Kirk Douglas later said watching Lorre fight through genuine terror day after day was one of the bravest things he'd ever witnessed on a film set. The irony is that audiences praised Lorre's nuanced performance in those scenes, never realizing they were watching a man confronting his deepest nightmare with cameras rolling. Number 12. The ocean floor was actually a swimming pool. Those stunning underwater scenes showing Nemo's crew collecting giant colorful seashells from the ocean floor, filmed in a swimming pool at the Disney studio back lot. The ocean was about 8 feet deep with painted backdrops and strategically placed fake coral. Divers pushed the prop shells across the pool floor to make them look like living creatures moving naturally. The lighting was controlled, the water temperature comfortable, and the biggest danger was bumping into the pool's edge. After dealing with real sharks, spoiled fish, and malfunctioning squids, this must have felt like a vacation. Sometimes the most magical movie moments happen in the most mundane locations. The crew became masters of movie magic in that little pool. They used forced perspective to make the shallow depth look like an endless ocean abyss, placing larger props in the foreground and smaller ones in the back to create the illusion of vast distance. Air bubbles were carefully controlled and timed to drift upward at just the right speed to sell the underwater atmosphere. Even the sand on the bottom was specially selected. Regular pool plaster would have reflected too much light and looked fake, so they covered it with a mixture of actual sand and powdered minerals that photographed like the deep-sea floor. The whole setup was so convincing that when the film premiered, marine biologists reportedly praised the authentic ocean environment and asked where the location footage was shot. The crew would just smile and point to the studio parking lot. Turns out you don't need to voyage 20,000 leagues under the sea when you've got a good pool, some paint, and a lot of imagination. Number 13. James Mason's costume nearly drowned him. Captain Nemo's impressive military uniform looks dignified and commanding on screen. What you don't see is that it weighed nearly 40 pounds when wet, the equivalent of wearing a toddler strapped to your chest. In underwater scenes, Mason couldn't move without assistance. The costume turned him into a human anchor. Crew members had to use a crane to hoist him in and out of the water like cargo. Between takes, he'd just hang there suspended in midair, dripping and exhausted, waiting for someone to lower him back to solid ground. He later joked that Captain Nemo wasn't mysterious and brooding. He was just too tired to move. The weight wasn't even the worst part. The fabric absorbed water like a sponge, getting heavier with every second Mason spent submerged. During longer underwater sequences, he'd signal frantically to be pulled up, not because he was out of air, but because the costume was literally dragging him down to the bottom of the tank. Safety divers had to stay within arm's reach at all times, ready to cut him free if the costume's weight became too much. One crew member later recalled watching Mason's face turn red as he struggled against the uniform's pull, fighting to stay upright while delivering his lines. The costume department tried lighter materials, but Disney insisted on authenticity, so Mason suffered through take after take, weighted down by cinematic ambition and about 40 pounds of Victorian-era naval fashion. Number 14. The finale nearly burned down the studio. The Nautilus's explosive destruction was achieved using miniature models rigged with real gasoline explosions. Controlled pyrotechnics, precise timing, experienced technicians. What could go wrong? Turns out everything. During filming, one charge misfired and ignited part of the stage ceiling. Flames spread faster than anyone expected. Someone screamed fire, and the entire effects department evacuated in seconds. Crew members grabbed extinguishers and fought the blaze while others dragged equipment to safety. The fire was contained before major damage occurred, but it came terrifyingly close to destroying not just the scene but the entire soundstage. The quest for spectacular destruction nearly created some very real, very expensive destruction. Number 15. Walt Disney watched everything like a silent film villain. Walt Disney didn't just oversee this production, he haunted it. He had a private observation booth built above the massive water tank, a hidden perch where he could watch every take without being seen. Crew members would glance up between shots and spot him there, silhouetted against the light, scribbling notes in silence like some mysterious overseer. Nobody knew when he'd appear or what he was writing. After major scenes, notes would arrive from the booth. Changes, suggestions, criticisms. It created constant pressure. Everyone knew the boss was watching, judging, taking notes that could reshape their work at any moment. Some crew members found it motivating. Others found it deeply unsettling. Either way, nothing escaped Disney's attention. The man was as omnipresent as Captain Nemo himself. From rubber squids to real sharks, from milk-filled oceans to stage-ceiling infernos, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was absolute chaos from the first day of filming to the last. And yet somehow, through all the disasters, injuries, and near catastrophes, it became one of the greatest adventure films ever made. It didn't just push the boundaries of what was possible in 1954, it invented new boundaries. What fact shocked you the most? The squid going rogue, Peter Lorre's genuine terror, or Walt Disney watching from the shadows?